ChatGPT to act as a Lutheran Church-Missouri Synod theologian and list 5 dangers and 5 benefits of using its technology, using ChatGPT. And it's really interesting. Its initial response was, as a theologian in the Lutheran Church-Missouri Synod, I would approach the use of technology, including ChatGPT, with caution, recognizing both the dangers and benefits it may present. Now, I think that's an easy spit out sentence, right? It's basically that, talking about that 6th grade, the way that you respond to a question is that you use the questions and just turn it into a statement type of thing. So I'm just going to go ahead, David, and list the 5 dangers first, and then we can list the 5 benefits. I don't know if we'll necessarily need to get in, maybe along the way, I'll tell you guys what it says specifically. There's just a couple sentences behind each of these on the list. So for ChatGPT, as it rats itself out on its own dangers, it lists these 5: false teachings, reduction of personal interaction, dehumanization, distraction from true worship, and addiction. David,
addiction, huh?
I think that's a pretty good list.
Do you think it's insinuating that, like, addiction, like it'd be like someone's going to become addicted to using ChatGPT? like we are, like, so with says, Facebook, like you just keep scrolling, and so ChatGPT just, it's like a never ending. Yeah. So on that one in particular, it says addiction. Technology can be addictive, leading to a distorted sense of priorities and values. All right, I'm on board.
So, yeah. So like ChatGPT, man, he's or she or it is very reflective, very wise. So yeah, I appreciate this episode of Headlines with the Pastors is brought to you by ChatGPT. All the words have been scripted for us. I think that is another
just a robot the whole time.
Right, exactly.
I've been a robot this entire time. That's it.
So we've been using the technology for a while now, folks. Right. I think that maybe that's part of one of my biggest things is the dehumanization part of this. It says using technology like ChatGPT can lead to a dehumanizing of our interactions and a devaluation of human relationships and community. I think that, for if you let something like AI technologies run everything, then you start to think not for yourself, but how will an AI technology think for me, or how you always think you're going to be thinking more as inputs than you are going to be thinking in real reflection. But it's going to have, in a sense, the mirage of your own self-reflections. But in reality, it's just a generating of a thought, which is not really a real thought. It's just one that's been regurgitated by information that is available to it as it's been trained and learned. And so it's like you mentioned before, every technology that has benefits also has downsides. And as I mentioned, we all are products of the fall. And so we have, an immense sin complication here that as sinful people, as fallen people, we're going to abuse things. We're going to take God's creation and recreate things in our own image, or create a God for us, or create an idol for ourselves, whatever that is. And technology tends to be the idol that we lean ourselves toward. David, what are some of your pickups here about the dangers of ChatGPT?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, like the dehumanizing
or
thing.
AI.
Right, the dehumanizing thing, the addiction thing. What was the first one?
False teachings. Yeah, that's worthy of our conversation.
All of those, I mean, they all kind of wrap around the same idea in my mind anyway, and that's the incarnation. right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because God doesn't want to be a God who is far off or, through a computer screen or something like that. Like Jesus comes down from heaven to live amongst us on earth, to teach us, not false teaching, but to teach us, the way to know the Father. And so, to say that like, somehow we're going to, replace like a natural human understanding of life with an AI or, addiction, right? Which is essentially just
one of the things that you're touching on.
Yeah,
one of the things that you're touching on is that distraction from true worship, right? So our God is Jesus is incarnated into the flesh, come to dwell among us in order to save us and rescue us from our own sin, and in response we return with true worship. That's the part of the divine service. God's service to us. God comes to us. God serves us, not because we're so great, but because we have a great need. And so, of course, that's going to meld right into false teachings and a false notion of not only Christ's incarnation, but then also our own humanity. So I think in some ways, ChatGPT gives us a good structure here, but for its own dangers. But I think as you're alluding to, David, is that at the same time, it's also missing a major point, which is the totality of what it means to be Christian, what it means to live in this world and react to it, to be human, and to not be run by technologies, to have our basically place our idols in things that are not, place our faith in a false God.
Right. Well, as we speak, it's currently writing my sermon on the Transfiguration for this coming Sunday.
It's taking that long,
and honestly, it's being more eloquent than I am.
Yeah.
But its perfection then is also part of its downfall. Because
or it's perceived
not that it is perfect, right? I mean, obviously, it's not quite perfect, but it's because it is, able to be more eloquent or have better grammar or something. I mean, it really takes personality away. Like there's no personality in an AI except for the perceived personality that a programmer may have put in there. But it's always going to be a shadow of what is real or what is, actually true. I mean, to be a human, to make mistakes and to like learn from those mistakes, you're actually better off for it on the other side than if you were just like handed, all of the appropriate things to begin with. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's something to be said about the human experience and, just needing to err in some way. That way you can receive the forgiveness later. Right.
Right.
What is it? The sick have no need for a physician. Right. So if, we're somehow going to perfect our human existence through AI or something, we're denying our need for any sort of salvation. So, I mean, I'm happy with the messy human existence that I have, not because I'm content with sin, but because I recognize my great need for the incarnated Son of God. Which something I doubt ChatGPT would ever teach anybody, unless ChatGPT is logging into headlines with the pastors, then maybe.
All right. So here are the 5 benefits that ChatGPT wants to let you know about. Access to information is one. Convenience is another. Improved communication, evangelism, they say, and inclusiveness. So these are the 5 benefits that ChatGPT has that it wants to promote from the perspective, remind you, of a Lutheran Church-Missouri Synod theologian. So these are the 5 benefits of using ChatGPT or similar technology. David, I like the danger list much better than I did the benefits that it promoted here. So we can kind of go right down through them maybe real quick here. Access to information. I agree about that one. So I agree that that's been, I've used it on a number of little projects here and there just to see how it would react, what information it would give. Certain, I forget if I mentioned this already, but I was looking up some quotes from some philosophers, and I wanted ChatGPT to pull the quotes for me because I was looking for specific information across them. And the responses that it gave back, I think one of the three philosophers that it gave me in the page numbers, because I asked it to cite it for me as well, like where it found this in what book type of thing, because I want to be able to look it up myself, because I didn't want to just like trust ChatGPT to do the work that I was asking it to do full-heartedly, because I full-heartedly don't trust it. And good thing for it, because it gave me with quotes, with the scare quotes around it, that here's what this particular philosopher has said. And in reality, when I went to find that particular quote, it could not give it to me. Like one of them did. One of them worked out, and it was on the right page of the document that I was looking at. And I was like, okay, that one was helpful. But I also spent extra time making sure that these other quotes were accurate when in fact they were not. So I was looking into a particular subject matter, and I was hoping that I could get a quote from each one of these philosophers on that topic. And so when I told ChatGPT, because you can interact with it, that it was that these are not real quotes, it's like, oh yeah, we know, this is what they might have said, or this is what it sounds like. So sorry about that.
It's the spirit of what they said, not the letter.
Right. Which is the letter, what I was looking for. And this is the thing, this is one of my greater worries, is that this cyclical nature of bad information. So let's say someone like me pulls quotes from these quote unquote philosophers, and I get one of the three right, and I write a paper, and that paper gets published. And now that's information on the internet that this ChatGPT or some similar AI is pulling its information from to train it. Now, what's happened is someone can, and if that happens enough times, and that's what's, put out from similar queries, people are going to get these quotes with some semblance of veracity, some semblance of truth, because they've been quoted so many times, when in fact they're actually false. It's false information. It's quotes that people never actually said.
Well,
now we have examples of this, of course, right? We have examples of this, like Luther saying things that he never said, and people, go, Luther never said that. If you look at his works, but people now, my biggest worry is that people won't have that fact checking. They won't do it. They'll trust the information, and it will, these false quotes, these false information will, have a even higher uptick of being passed around in a more technologically advanced time. David,
yeah.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I would just wonder if there's any designation built into the AI that would recognize like a primary or a secondary or a tertiary source.
Yeah,
because if there's not, if it just takes everything as a primary source, then you're going to get this problem just perpetuating itself. And to a similar point too, is it just taking like all open source information off of the internet and then like going like, well, from 12 sources, like this is the answer. And you go, what were your 12 sources? Were they all, people,
Wikipedia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So like, depending on where it's going to pull its information from, that could have a profound effect on what it actually spits out. And, to the point of false teaching, whatever we had in the first set of 5, it's just like, it's just going to keep perpetuating this stuff around. So I think that's a scary one.
The one that kind of a couple of them that jumped out at me were the evangelism one and the inclusiveness one. With evangelism, I don't quite understand. Okay, so this is what it says. It says evangelism. ChatGPT can be used as a tool for sharing the gospel and spreading the word of God to a wider audience. Well, I suppose that's what we're doing here in a sense.
Right.
I guess if you use ChatGPT,
it's writing my sermons
to talk about it. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I guess if you use it to give me an apologetic script against X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, right.
Then I guess you could do it that way. But as far as like, I'm pretty sure I'm just talking to an AI. I don't think I'm like evangelizing the AI. So I'm a little confused on that point. But I guess you make a good point. You know, if you're using it for your sermon, then I guess you're. I can't even say with a straight face. Then I guess you're evangelizing. Then okay, Lord help us. If that's your evangelism model, that hey, these are
going back to the
ChatGPT,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, evangelism is incarnational. Like it's two people coming together. Like it's human. It can't be electronic.
And then the inclusiveness one. I don't understand why this is particularly Lutheran Church-Missouri Synod theologians are thinking about inclusiveness. I appreciate it incorporating us into contemporary speak about what we want to do as Lutheran Church LCMS theologians. It says inclusiveness by allowing people to access information and communicate regardless of location or mobility. Technology like ChatGPT can promote inclusiveness and accessibility. I don't even know what that sentence means. I don't know what that means. Allowing people access to access information and communicate regardless of location or mobility. Okay. So I guess if you're anywhere in the world, or if you have some sort of mobility issue, whether you can't leave a country or you have a physical mobility issue, I suppose that kind of makes this technology accessible to all. But I don't know how that necessarily promotes this absolute of inclusivity or this absolute of accessibility. Access to what? You know, I guess that's kind of the question for us today on Headlines is that what are you getting access to? You're getting access to some benefits for sure. But, you know, if it's your end all to all, if it's your, as we talked about before, if you're addicted to it, you know, what do you have access to? What are you being included in that inclusiveness statement there? What are you being brought into? I mean, as we spoke on the top of the show, I mean, I guess you're being brought into and having access to a greater form of idolatry. So there's a sense here where great caution needs to be made. I mean, obviously David's speaking in jest, or maybe not. I don't know. I guess I can't speak to that about
it's in
generating his sermon. So I guess if you go to Pastor Dunlop's church, you're going to hear an AI sermon. But if you go to my church, you're going to hear a human sermon. All right.
Well, the thing is too, is it can't know your people. Like, you can't know the people who are sitting in the pews and what their struggles are and what their life's about. And so if you're going to actually preach a sermon that's going to be received in any sort of like real way, you can't. It doesn't work.
And even if it knows doctrine, like it's able to spit out doctrine, the interconnectivity of doctrines is going to be as you read it, is very difficult for it. It can differentiate. I have asked it questions of kind of on the denominational lines of things. And it's helpful in a sense, like it does give a generic answer. But if someone were to come into my office or your office, David, and they were to, have a printout of what their conversation was with ChatGPT about, let's say, the differences on the holy baptism between evangelicals, Baptists, non-denoms, Roman Catholics, and Lutherans, and they said, this is what ChatGPT told me, you might look at that list and go, okay, well, that's some very good, maybe initial points, but it, maybe it uses this one word wrong, or maybe it, when it interacts with the other teachings, gets a sense of its gets a sense wrong. And if you get one word wrong, if you get one sense or kind of a phrase or how do I want to say this, like an understanding of the doctrine wrong, or slightly wrong, maybe that's how I want to say it, then the whole thing's off kilter. So you can't actually evangelize through this in its like purest sense, where that like you ask it a question or you tell people to ask the AI these questions, and it'll like, it's the equivalent as like telling people go and Google it, go and ChatGPT it. It's like, yeah, you're going to get some sort of output, and you're going to get some information that's going to be interesting, maybe even helpful, but fully clear.
Yeah.
I think that goes right back up to that very first danger that ChatGPT gave us, which was false teaching. So I think that's the biggest thing here that we need to be careful about this. I think it's a good study partner. I haven't said that before. There's certain things that I am interested in, and it was able to give me a list of books that I'd never heard before and authors, and I was able to look them up, and that was helpful. It was able to give me some foundational things to include in my own like personal research of things. But it was more of a starting point. It was more of a helpful tool in part, but not in full. And I think that that's one of the problems that we've seen and even reported here with headlines about AI technology. I mean, we talked about this not too long ago. In fact, it may have been ChatGPT or something very similar to it, where someone thought that the AI was sentient.
Right.
And that you can actually have this sort of relationship with it. You can actually have a real intelligible conversation between, as if they were two people, and that the information that is exchanged is genuine. And one of my bigger concerns is that people would look at AI as a genuine interaction, a genuine, non-incarnational, non-human interaction with Christ, with the neighbor.
Yeah.
And
I would just assume
that's what I see, David. What's kind of your thoughts on this? Your final thoughts on
yeah, I guess I just I don't think we're going to be out of a job anytime soon. I think AI still certainly has some very real limitations to it. And in the end, I mean, I guess maybe we're trying to, slam what seems to be relatively new technology into a box that it's not meant to be slammed into, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's going to try to turn ChatGPT into a Lutheran theologian. We have Lutheran theologians for that already. We don't need this to become that. So as long as we're using the technology in the appropriate way, I think we're all in the clear, and we should use it.
All right. Thank you, David, so much for that thought. Thank you all also for joining us today on Headlines with the Pastors. We thank you for being with us and joining with us, coming back with us for our first episode of the year. If you like what you heard and you want to listen to more, consider subscribing to the podcast on whatever platform you use. Headlines with the Pastors is what you put in there. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell notification button to stay up to date on our latest content. You can also visit us on our website at rubrica.org. That's rubric with an A.org. God's blessings to you, and God's blessings to your week.